Hello, everyone. Welcome to the only food safety course that you will ever need. Every year, millions of people trust that the food they eat won't harm them. Behind that trust lies something invisible. That invisible something is food safety systems. Most courses teach you what to do, but this course teaches you why it works, how to think about food safety systems, and how to build systems that actually protect people. Whether you are implementing ISO 22000 or FSSC 22000 or BRCGS or any GFSI recognized standard, whether you are a farmer, a manufacturer, an auditor, or a leader, this is where mastery begins. Not with checklists, not with templates, but with perfect understanding of food safety systems. This course will change how you think about food safety forever. You won't just follow systems, you will understand them, you will build systems, and you will make them work because everything is explained with real life event that happened and recently also. Welcome to the Universal Food Safety System Implementation course presented to you by Wolbol, founder of QHSC360.org. The complete journey from foundational principles to operational excellence. Let's explore first why food safety system exists at all. Welcome to Module 1 of the Universal Food Safety System Implementation course. Before we discuss hazards or controls or standards or certifications, we must understand something far more fundamental, and that is why food safety systems exist at all. Let's explore that. Our course purpose, let me show you what this course will enable you to achieve once you finish it. First, this course will enable you to achieve universal design of food safety system. You will be able to create systems that work across any country, across any sector, or any scale, from small farms to global corporations. This course also will enable you to achieve consumer protection. You will be able to safeguard consumers before audits or certifications. You will be able to build trust across complex supply chains. This course also will enable you to achieve standards alignment. You will naturally align with ISO 22000, FSSC 22000, Codex HACCP, and GFSI schemes through solid system thinking. And also, this course will enable you to achieve sustained excellence. You will be able to maintain effectiveness under pressure, growth, and change. You will be able to build systems that survive the real world pressure. Now, let's highlight our target audience. This course serves broad community. Our audience that will benefit from this course include primary production and manufacturing, which consists of farmers and primary producers, food and ingredient manufacturers, multinational food companies, and small-scale processors. Also, our audience who will benefit from this course include distribution and service sector, which include cold chain, cold storage and logistics provider, importers and exporters, retailers and supermarkets and food service and catering chains. Also, the audience that will benefit from this course include professional specialists that consist of food safety managers and quality assurance teams, internal and third party auditors, food safety consultants, and technical specialists. Also, our course serve the governance and oversight professionals, include regulatory professionals, NGO and public health officials, supply chain risk managers, and senior leadership teams. The design principle of our course: every module must make sense to both a small farm, and a global corporation. We speak a universal language of food safety. Now let's explore the learning philosophy, how this course thinks about food safety. This course progresses through 6 logical layers, not through standards or regulations, but through understanding how food safety actually works in reality. The first logical layer is why systems exist, the societal and ethical foundation for food safety. The second logical layer is how safety fails. By understanding failure patterns across industries and borders. The third layer is how controls work, the mechanics of prevention, evidence, and verification. And the fourth layer is how systems are built by designing governance, traceability, and operational control. The fifth logical layer of our course is how standards translate logic by covering the understanding of ISO, FSSC, Codex, and GFSI as system expression. The sixth layer of our course is how excellence is sustained, and we will cover the culture, majority, and long-term resilience. Now, let's begin Module 1, why food safety system exists. The core question of our Module 1: why do societies need food safety system at all? This module sets the ethical and societal foundation for everything that follows. We examine here why trust must be engineered, why good intentions fail without systems, and how moral duty translates into operational control. By understanding why systems exist first, you will comprehend how they must be designed later. Now let's begin section 1. Food safety is not a personal choice. And I will demonstrate that and also give you a real life example. Food safety is often discussed as if it were a matter of personal responsibility. People would say something like, consumers should be careful, or workers should follow hygiene, or suppliers should do the right thing. This thinking is deeply flawed. In modern food systems, consumers cannot protect themselves. They cannot see bacteria, they cannot test chemical residues, and they cannot verify allergens or trace ingredients' origins. By the time food reaches the consumer, risks are already embedded. This is why food safety is not a personal choice, it is public protection responsibility. The moment food is produced for others, responsibility shifts from the individual to the system. Let me repeat again. The moment food is produced for others, responsibility shifts from the individual to the system. This is the first principle of food safety. Now, let's explore the real world example, the invisible hazard. Imagine with me the following scenario. A mother purchases pre-packed salad from a supermarket for her family dinner. This packing looks perfect. The expiry date is valid and the brand is trusted. She cannot see the 3 days earlier where irrigation water contaminated with E. coli was used on the farm. She cannot test for pathogens and she cannot trace the supply chain. She cannot verify washing procedures at the processing facility. She cannot do all this before she make a purchasing decision. She just trusts the system, so she will just buy. Now, what happened? By the time salads reached her shopping cart, her family's safety has already been determined by decisions made by people she will never meet in places she will never see. This is why food safety cannot be a personal choice. The consumers or the consumer has no meaningful ability at this point to protect themselves. This scenario plays out millions of times every day across global food systems. Consumers' protection depend entirely on upstream controls. Now let's explore section 2, the trust, distance, and invisibility. First, let's look at historical food system. For most of human history that we know, the food was local, still in some part of the world. You knew who grew it, okay? You knew who grew the food, and you knew who prepared the food and where it came from. Trust was personal and direct during this time. Then, in our modern food system today, food crosses multiple countries. It passes through dozens of hands and it involves complex processing and connects people who will never meet the consumer. For this reason, the trust become a challenge. Trust can no longer be personal at this point. It must be designed to scale across distance, across time, and across complexity and anonymity. Food safety system exists because trust must now scale across invisible connections. This is why systems are not about good intention. They are about structured trust. And I will give you now the real world example. The broken chain. Imagine with me the following scenario. A restaurant in London, in United Kingdom, serves seafood that was caught in the North Atlantic. It was processed in Thailand and it was frozen in the Netherlands and it was distributed through a United Kingdom logistics network. The fish have passed through many interfaces. Now let's explore. The fish has passed through the fishing vessel, has passed through a landing port, primary processor, an international shipping container, a secondary processor, cold storage facility, a distribution center, and finally it reaches the restaurant kitchen. You can see that each handover trust must transfer invisibility. The chef at the restaurant cannot verify the vessel's hygiene condition, and the dinner on the table or the consumers cannot confirm the cold chain was never broken. But one temperature abuse during a 14-hour delay at the port unknown to anyone downstream can make the entire chain unsafe. Now, this is why modern food systems require structured trust. Personal relationships can not longer span these distances and complexities. Global food supply chains involves dozens of handovers. Systems exist to maintain control across every interface. And now you can see with the real world scenario how that makes sense. Now let's explore section 3, why good intentions always fail. Most food failures do not happen because people want to cause harm. No, that's not the case. Those failures happen because human beings are predictably imperfect under real world conditions, and that includes you and me. Now, let's see those imperfect conditions. First, the fatigue and pressure. People are tired, are rushed, or under production pressure to prioritize speed, cost, or volume over safety checks. The second real world condition is divided attention. People assume someone else has checked, or they overlook critical steps when managing multiple responsibilities simultaneously. The third real world condition is incentive misalignment. People are awarded for output metrics rather than safety outcomes, right? Creating unconscious bias toward shortcuts. So, in a system that relies on memory or relies on vigilance or relies on goodwill or heroism will eventually fail. This is not a moral criticism. No, that's not what we are doing. But we are just stating the design reality. Food safety systems exist because behavior alone cannot carry the burden of protection. Systems compensate for fatigue, reduce dependency on memory, and also make the right action easier than the wrong one. And systems detect failure before harms occurs. Now let me explain that with a real world example again. The exhausted worker scenario. Imagine with me the following scenario. It's Friday afternoon at a busy bakery. Maria has been on shift since 4 a.m. She's worked 6 consecutive days because guess what? Two of her colleagues they call in and they say they are sick, so they didn't come to work. Production targets are behind schedule at this point, and the manager is pressuring the team to catch up before the weekend delivery deadline. And this is Friday afternoon. Now, Maria is responsible for checking allergen labels on the incoming ingredients. And she has been doing this task thousands of times correctly. But today, she's exhausted. She's a little bit distracted by the pressure, and also mentally, she's already planning how to pick up her children from school on time. So, what happened? Delivery arrives with almond flour in packing that looks identical to the regular flour they normally use. It's because the supplier has changed their packing design last week, and Maria glances at it, assumes it's a regular flour based on visual familiarity, and places the delivery in the standard flour area, and that's it. What happened next? 2 hours later, batch of nut-free cookies is produced using the almond flour. The cookies are packed, labeled as allergen-free, and shipped to school. At this point, Maria is not careless. When we were talking about the real world conditions, she is not incompetent, she is a human operating under real world conditions. This is why food safety systems cannot rely on human vigilance alone, because there is fatigue, pressure, and distraction which are predictable. Systems must compensate for all these conditions. Now let's explore section 4, the difference between intent and control. The intent sounds something like we care about safety, we train our people, we take this seriously, we have a safety culture, we never had any major incident. Intent is important, but it's not control. Intent describes values and aspirations. Now, let's look at controls. Controls sound something like we can demonstrate that risk is managed. We can show how standards are prevented, or we can show how hazards are prevented. We can prove failure are detected and corrected. We have evidence of effective monitoring. Our verification shows controls are working. Now, control in this point is demonstrable, is measurable, and is auditable. Control describes the reality. Food safety systems exist to bridge the gap between intent and reality. They turn values into processes, they turn expectations into controls, and they turn the promises into evidence. Without this bridge, safety remain belief, not a fact. Now let me explain that with real world example again. Imagine with me the following scenario. A small dairy farm prides itself on producing high quality milk. The owner genuinely cares about food safety and has told his team repeatedly, we take hygiene seriously, always clean equipment properly, right? He always tells his team like that. Now, the farm has good intention. This owner genuinely believes his team understand what properly means. But there is no written cleaning procedure, no verification that cleaning is effective, and there is no monitoring of cleaning chemicals concentrations. Also, there is no records to prove cleaning happened. Now, one day, a new employees joins the team. He's shown the cleaning process once by a colleague who told this new employee, just rinse it and just rinse it well and make sure it looks clean. The new employee interpreted well differently than the experienced staff. He doesn't know that certain residues are invisible. The new employee doesn't realize that looking clean is not the same as microbiologically safe. 3 weeks later, milk from the farm is linked to a listeria outbreak affecting 12 people, including two pregnant women. The farm owner now is devastated. He genuinely cared. He genuinely believed his team knew what to do. But intent without demonstrable control is not a protection. Caring about safety is essential, but it is not sufficient. Control requires evidence. Control requires verification. And control requires systems that work independently of individual interpretation. Now, let's explore Section 5, Food Safety as a Public Good. Food safety is not about protecting individual consumers. It is uh, it protects entire system and societies. First, food safety protect public health system. Preventing illness reduce burden on healthcare infrastructure and protect vulnerable population. Also, food safety protects economic stability because food safety failure can collapse export market. It can destroy livelihood, and it can establish regional. It can destabilize regional economies. Right. At the same time, food safety protects trade relations or trade relationships because international trades depend on mutual confidence in food safety systems and regulatory equivalence. Also, food safety protects social trust because consumer confidence in food safety is foundation of social stability and quality of life. A single food safety failure can cause widespread illness. It can destroy consumer confidence and permanently damage brands or livelihood. This is why governments regulate food safety, customers demand assurance, and societies tolerate oversight. Now, let me demonstrate this with a real world example. When one failure affected thousands, imagine with me the following scenario, and this event happened in 2008 in China. You can read it in this link, and I can leave this link below. Just comment, and I will leave you the link. In 2008, contaminated infant formula in China affected approximately 300,000 babies, with at least six deaths and thousands hospitalized with kidney damage. The cause of this event, it was melanin deliberately added to milk to artificially inflate protein test results. The impact extended far beyond the immediate victims. And let's see the impact now. First, parents across Asia at that time stopped trusting infant formula entirely, and was that resulted in affecting nutrition for millions of children. Secondly, China's dairy export market collapsed, devastating rural farming communities at that time. The third impact was that international retailers removed Chinese dairy products globally, and and as a result, that action affected trade relationships with China. The fourth impact is healthcare systems were overwhelmed with testing and treatment demands. Then the final impact, consumers' confidence in food safety took years to rebuild again. Now you can see one systematic failure, the absence or effective controls to prevent fraud and, and verify ingredient integrity has created consequences that ripple through public health, through economics, and through international relations, and even social trust. So, this is why food safety is a public good. The consequences of failure extend far beyond individual consumers, affect entire societies. Food safety failure can destabilize economies, can collapse public trust, and can affect millions of people who never consumes the product. This is why governments regulate, customers demand assurance, and societies invest in food safety system. Now let's explore section 6. Why is scaling up the business change everything in terms of food safety? First, let's see example of a small system. A small mistake in a small system affect a few people, visibility is high, communication is direct, and corrections are immediate. Then if we move to growing system, as organizations grow, risks multiply, interfaces increase, handovers become more frequent, and direct visibility decreases. Then if we move up to large system, the same mistake from a small system now in a large system can affect thousands of or millions, can affect geographic dispersion and supply chain complexity. Sorry, the same uh, the same mistake in a small system, if it happened in a large system, it can affect thousands or millions because dispersion and supply chain complexity amplify consequences. And I will explain shortly all these three systems in a real world event. Food safety systems exist because scale amplifies harm. What worked informally and is at the small scale becomes dangerous at large scale. Systems are how societies allow food systems to grow without increasing risk proportionately. This principle applies equally to a farm expanding from local markets to regional distribution and to a multinational managing corporations across continents. Now, let me demonstrate with real world example when scale amplifies harm. Imagine with me the following scenario. A small artisan ice cream maker produces 50 liters per day and sold directly at the local market. One day, batch is slightly under pasteurized due to equipment malfunction. The impact of this event, approximately 20 uh, customers potentially were affected, and all of them are local, and all the, the, the effects were traced within few hours. So that means the thing was contained within few hours and everything was fine. Now, 5 years later, the business has grown. The same ice cream is now produced in a regional facility, making 5,000 liters a day and distributed to 200 retail locations across 3 states. Wonderful. The business has grown. But what happened? The same equipment malfunction uh, happened again. The same slide under pasteurization, but now 2,000 customers across multiple states are potentially affected. So, tracing each and every harm takes weeks. Media coverage at this point is national, and retailer confidence at this point collapse. And what happened? The brand is permanently damaged. The mistake was identical, right? But the scale transformed a local incident into a public health crisis. This is why growing food business must formalize their system. What worked informally in the past at a small scale becomes dangerous at large scale now as we grow. So systems allow growth without, when you build systems, it allows growth without proportionately increasing the risk. Now let's explore section 7. Why informal controls always collapses. Many organizations believe they have controls because they say something, we have always done it this way, or we have never had a major incident, or people know what to do. But this is called historical confidence. But history does not protect the future. Let's explore together why informal controls fail. First, informal control fail because it's undocumented knowledge. Critical procedures exist, right? But only in people's head, making them vulnerable to staff turnover and memory decay. Second, informal controls fail because they are inconsistent application. The difference I mean, different people interpret the phrase, we do, this is how we do things. Different people interpret that differently, and that create variation and hidden risks in the final outcome. The third reason informal controls fail is because they are unchallenged assumptions. Long standing practices are usually in informal systems never questioned or validated, even as conditions change around them. Fourth reason why informal conditions fail is due to erosion over time. As people change, informal controls decay gradually and invisibly until failure happens. Food safety systems exist because control must survive change. Control must survive new stuff, new supplier, new products, new markets, new pressures. If control depends on people staying the same, that is not the control, my friend. Now let's demonstrate together with a real world example the collapse of informal control. Imagine with me the following scenario. A family owned restaurant has operated successfully for 15 years. The founder, let's name him Ball, is trained, uh, has trained every chef personally, and everyone know how to handle allergens safely. There were no written procedure at all because Ball would say something like, we don't need paperwork. We have experience and trust. Well, the system worked because Ball was always present. Relationships were personal and staff turnover was very low. But then Ball retired. His daughter took over the management, and within 2 years, 60% of the kitchen staff had changed. New employees were trained by other employees. You can see here, each passing on slightly different interpretation of the phrase, this is how we do things here. Now, one day, customer with severe shellfish allergen orders pasta dish which is marked allergen friendly on the menu. The new chef uses a pan that was previously used for seafood. It was clean, but not the standard required for allergen control. This chef doesn't know doesn't know this matters. He doesn't know this is a serious thing. No one ever explained the cross contact protocols in details to him or to her. The customer, because as a result, suffers anaphylactic shock and was hospitalized. Sorry, anaphylactic shock and was hospitalized. The restaurant's informal control system collapsed not because people stopped caring, but because knowledge was never documented. Procedures were never standardized, and control depend entirely on specific individuals who were no longer there. Informal control cannot survive staff turnover, business growth, or leadership change. If critical knowledge exists only in people's head, it will eventually be lost. Now let's move to section 8. Why food safety systems are preventive and not reactive. A key misunderstanding is thinking food safety systems exist to respond to incidents. In reality, they exist to prevent predictable failure. Most food system incidents are not surprises. They are the result of known risks, weak controls, ignored warning, or untested assumptions. First, identify. We need to identify where harm could occur based on hazard analysis and operational understanding. Then, secondly, we must design barriers. We must implement controls before harm happen, making prevention the default outcome. After that, we can detect early to identify loss of control quickly through monitoring and verification system. Prevention is always cheaper, safer, and more ethical than response. Food safety system exists to build prevention into daily operations, not to manage crises after they occur. Let me explain that again with a real world example: prevention versus reaction. Imagine with me the following scenario. Two Jewish manufacturers, two Jewish, not Jewish, two Jews manufacturers operate in the same region, both producing fresh apple juice. Company A focuses on reaction. They test finished products for pathogens before release. They have a crisis response plan. They monitor customer complaints carefully. When the problem occurs, they respond quickly. That's good. Now let's see. Company B. Company B focuses on prevention. They conduct hazard analysis to identify where contamination could occur. They implement validated washing and sanitization procedure for apple. They control time and temperature during processing. They verify supplier control and they monitor critical control point in real time. Now, this is perfect. What happened next? One season, both companies receive apples from the same orchards exposed to contamination irrigation water or contaminated irrigation water. Company A testing, when they conduct their usual testing, they catch some contaminated batches, but not all. Testing in Company A is statistical, not absolute. Some contaminated juice reaches the consumers. An outbreak happens. The company responds well, but 47 people become ill. Media coverage is damaging, and retailer relationships are strained. In Company B, preventive control stop contamination before it enters the product. So their washing validation proves effectiveness. Their supplier verification identified the risk early. Their monitoring detected a deviation before product was released. No illness occurred. No one outside the company even knew there was a risk. Prevention is invisible when it works, but reaction is visible when it fails. Food safety systems exist to prevent harm, not to manage crisis. Prevention is always cheaper, safer, and more ethical than response. Now, uh, let's explore section 9. What this means for every audience, what we have discussed so far. Food safety system matters to every participant in food chain, regardless of role, regardless of scale, and regardless of sector. The following is why this module is relevant to you. First, for farmers and primary producers. Once you sell food, others trust you. Your controls become the foundation for downstream safety. For manufacturers, scale removes visibility. Systems ensure consistency across shifts, across sites, and across seasons. For logistics providers, handovers are where control is lost. Your systems bridge critical transitions. For retailers and food services, you inherit you inherit upstream risks. Your systems must verify what you cannot see. For leaders and managers, safety cannot be delegated away. Your decision shapes system effectiveness. For auditors and consultants, understanding system logic helps you distinguish real control from documentation theater. Food safety systems exist because no part of the chain can opt out of responsibility. Every interface, every handover, every decision contributes to consumer protection or failure. Connecting the standards and the requirements. Now, let's come back and explore. Everything we have discussed in these module forms the conceptual foundation for food safety standards worldwide. Let's connect these understanding to formal requirements because I know a lot of you want to see how does this apply to standards. First, in ISO 2000 clause 4.1, which is understanding the organization and its context. These clause requires organizations to understand external and internal issues relevant to their purpose. The societal needs for food safety systems, the reality of consumer vulnerability, and the public health consequences of failure are the context. This is how we meet the requirement by understanding why systems exist. You can articulate your organization's context truthfully and completely. The other in the other clause is ISO 22000 clause 5.1, which is leadership commitment. Leadership, it states this is the requirement of ISO 22000 clause 5.1, leadership and commitment. Leadership must demonstrate commitment to food safety. But commitment without understanding is, in fact, hollow, right? So leaders who understand why systems exist in the first place can make decisions that support controls rather than undermining it. So this is how we exceed the requirement. Leadership that understands system logic can govern food safety strategically and not just administratively. Now let's explore the requirement of Codex HACCP and system thinking. The Codex Alimentarius HACCP system is built on principles that reflect everything we have covered in this module. First principle, hazard analysis, which acknowledges that consumers cannot identify hazards themselves, and organizations must always prevent them. Second principle, critical control point, which recognizes that good intentions are not controlled. So specific points must be identified and managed. Third principle, which is monitoring and verification, which reflects the need for evidence, not assumption, to demonstrate controls. The fourth principle of HACCP is corrective actions, which which states that systems must detect failure and respond before harm reaches consumers. The fifth principle is documentation. So informal controls collapses, and it says that system must be documented to survive change. Codex HACCP does not exist because regulators like paperwork. No, they don't. Codex HACCP actually exists because the logic of prevention demands structural thinking. This module teaches you that logic. Now, let's explain with real-world example the HACCPs in action. Imagine with me the following scenario. Seafood process, not sorry, we are talking about seafood again, but just to explain to you. A seafood processing company implements HACCP to control Listeria monocytogenes in ready-to-eat smoked salmonella. Through hazard analysis, they identify that post-cooking contamination is the critical risk. They cannot rely on consumers to cook the product. It's eaten as it is, right? So they establish a critical control point. The first principle, right? The sanitization of the slicing equipment between batches. They define critical limits. Sanitizer concentration must be 200 part per million, and contact time is set at the minimum of 2 minutes and is verified by testing, by strip tests or by test strips. Secondly, they implement monitoring. Every batch changeover, the operator tests the sanitizer concentration and records the results. If the reading if the reading is below 200 ppm, production stops immediately. Then they implement verification, weekly environmental swaps tests for listeria on equipment surfaces. Monthly product testing confirms absence of pathogens. One day, monitoring detects sanitizer concentration at 150 ppm. What happened next? Next, production stops. The batch is held. Investigation reveals the sanitizer dispensers was malfunctioning. So the equipment is re-sanitized correctly, is verified, and then after that, the production resumes. No contaminated product reaches consumers. This is HACCP working as designed. Hazard identification, control established, monitoring detects deviation, and corrective actions prevent harm. HACCP is not bureaucracy, it is a structured prevention. Every principle exists because real world failure modes that must be controlled. FSSC 22000 additional requirements, culture and defense. FSSC 22000 includes additional requirements beyond ISO 22000, addressing food defense, food fraud, and food safety culture. These requirements exist because of the following. Food defense recognizes that harm can be intentional. Systems must prevent deliberate contamination. Secondly, food fraud acknowledges that economic incentives can compromise safety. Systems must verify integrity. Then, thirdly, food safety culture reflects the reality that systems succeed or fail based on human behavior. So, leadership and environment matter. This is how we meet and exceed requirements. Understanding why these requirements exist allows you to implement them as, as genuine protection and not for compliance exercises. Let me explain that with real world example when culture prevents fraud. Imagine with me the following scenario. Two spice importers source paprika from the same region. Both face the same economic pressure. Suppliers sometimes adulterate paprika with cheap Sudan red dye, enhance colors, and reduce costs. Company A relies on testing. They test incoming shipments for Sudan red. Testing is expensive, so they test around 10% of shipments randomly. Their systems depend on detection after the fact. The second company builds food safety culture and fraud prevention into their system. They conduct supplier audits focusing on cultures and integrity. They ask something like, how do you ensure your staff won't take shortcuts under pressure? They verify supplier traceability systems. They build long-term relationships where supplier understand that fraud will end the relationship permanently. They create an environment where doing the right thing is expected, is valued, and is verified. Now, one year, economic pressure increases, supplier face crop failure, and price spikes up. So what happened? Company A testing catches some adulterated shipments, but not all. One contaminated batch reaches consumers. Regulatory action follows. The company faces recall, fine, and reputational damage. Company B suppliers face the same pressure, but their culture and relationship prevent fraud. Supplier contact company B proactively to discuss supply challenge and together they find legitimate solutions, not adulteration occurs. This is why FSSC 22000 requires food safety culture and fraud prevention. Systems must address human behavior and economic incentives, not just technical controls. Food safety culture and fraud prevention exist because technical controls alone do not address intentional harm or economic pressure. Systems must shape behavior and build integrity. GFSI recognition and global trade. Now, the Global Food Safety Initiative, which is known as GFSI, benchmarks schemes like FSSC 22000, BRCGs, SQF, and IFS to create mutual recognition across borders. GFSI exists because trust must scale globally. A retailer in Europe or in Africa needs confidence in supplier in Asia or Oceania. An importer in America needs assurance about manufacturer in South America or in Caribbean, right? So GFSI recognized certifications provide common language for food safety based on the principle we have discussed. First, systems protect consumers, not just companies. Second, controls must be demonstrated, not claimed. Thirdly, prevention is structured, not operations. Prevention is structured into operations. Thirdly, evidence proves effectiveness. Now, this is how standards translate system logic into global confidence. When you understand the why and the what and the how of the standards, it become clear. Let me demonstrate with real world example. The GFSI recognition enables global trade and brings opportunity and trust. Imagine with me the following scenario. A mango processing facility in South Africa, Tanzania, or Thailand wants, wants to supply a major European retailer. The retailer requires GFSI recognized certification to ensure food safety standards meet European expectations. Now, without GFSI recognition, the South African, the Tanzanian, or the Thai facility would need the following. First, to undergo separate audit for each European customer. Second, to navigate different standards for different countries. Third, prove equivalence to multiple regulatory frameworks. Fourth, to invest enormous time and cost in redundant assessments. But with FSSC 22000, which is GFSI recognized certification, the facility demonstrate all that by first, hazard analysis and critical control points are managed systematically because now he is certified in FSSC 2000 and he's demonstrating that hazard analysis and critical control points are managed systematically. Secondly, the food safety culture and fraud prevention are embedded. Thirdly, verification and validation, prove system effectiveness, and fourth, international best practice are implemented just by having GFSI recognized certification. That facility demonstrate all the above mentioned. The European retailer accepts the FSSC certificate because GFSI benchmarking ensures the standard meet their requirements. The South Africans or the Tanzanian or the Thai facility gains access to European market. Trade flows efficiently because trust is standardized. This is why the FSI exists to create a common language for food safety that enables global commerce while protecting consumers everywhere. The FSI recognition allows a certificate issued in one country to be trusted in another. This mutual recognition is the foundation of modern global food trade. Let's explore section 10, what this course will and will not uh, do for you. This course will do the following for you. It will teach you how food safety systems actually work in reality. You will be able to explain why failures repeat across industries and countries. This course will help you design systems that survive pressure and change. And this course will show you how to translate system logic into standards compliance. Sorry, guys, I think my sound is getting disconnected there, but I don't know. I will just proceed with the wait. All right. It will also show you how to translate system logic into standard compliance. This course will enable you to lead food safety with confidence and competence. This course will not do the following for you. This course will not teach you shortcuts for certification without understanding. This course will not reduce food safety to checklists and templates. This course will not pretend that documents equal controls, and this course will not uh, create standards as the reasons for food safety. This course will not ignore the reality of how system fails. Standards and certification will come later in this course as translation of good system design, not as the reason for this course. We build system from principles to practice, from logic to compliance. Now let's explore section 8. No, I mean, let's move to the reflection now. There, this the following question. I want you to carry it with you forward before we move to the next module. The question is, if no regulator ever visit your organization, would your system still protect consumers? Pause and consider this question honestly. If your answer is yes, you are thinking correctly. Your system exists to protect people, not to satisfy inspectors. This mindset will serve you throughout this course and your career. If your answer is no, this course will change how you see food safety. By the end, you will understand how to design systems where protection is the purpose and compliance is the evidence. This question reveals whether the food safety is something you do or something you prove. True food safety systems delivers both. Summary: why systems exist. Let's consider the key insight from this module into a cohesive understanding. First, food safety exists, or the food safety system exists for consumer protection. Consumers cannot protect themselves from invisible hazard. Food safety is a public responsibility, not a personal choice. Secondly, trust at the scale. Food safety systems exist for trust at the scale. Modern food safety systems operate across distances, time, and complexity. Trust must be designed, not assumed. Thirdly, human limitations. Food safety systems exist for human limitations. Good intentions fail under fatigue, pressure, and change. Systems compensate for predictable human imperfection. Fourthly, food systems exist for intent versus control. Caring about safety is not the same as controlling safety. Systems bridge the gap between values and evidence. Fifth, food safety system exists for public good. Food safety protects healthcare systems or health systems, economies, trade relationships, and social trust, not just individuals. Six, food safety system exists for scale amplifications. Small mistakes in large systems cause widespread harm. Systems allow growth without proportional risk increase. 7. Food systems exist for survival through change. Informal controls collapse as people, supplier, and conditions change. Systems preserve controls over time. 8. Food safety systems exist for prevention first. Systems exist to prevent predictable failure, not to respond to incidents. Prevention is always safer and more ethical. How these modules meet standards requirement. Let's explore together. This module has established the foundation understanding required by multiple clauses across ISO 22000, FSSC 22000, and Codex HACCP. First, in ISO 22000 class 4.1, the requirement is understanding the context, how this module addressed it, explain why food safety system exists within societal, health, and trade contexts. Secondly, in ISO 22000 class 4.2, it requires understanding stakeholders' need. This module identifies consumer vulnerability, public health protection, and supply chain trust. Thirdly, ISO 22000 class 5.1 requirement of leadership contamination. We made them in this module because we have established why leaders must understand system logic, not just delegated tasks. Fourthly, ISO 22000 class 5.2.1 requirement of food safety policy. In this module, we address that because we showed why policy must reflect protection purpose, not just compliance statement. Fifth, we have HACCP Codex. The requirement is system thinking. We demonstrate that in Module 1 here through prevention logic that underpin all HACCP principles. Finally, FSSC 22000, Clause 2.5.13 or point 13 requirement is food safety culture. We address that in Module 1 here because we explain why human behavior and system design must work together. This is how we meet and exceed requirements. Standards require these elements because they reflect real system needs. Understanding the why, implementation become purposeful rather than mechanical. Now, let's look at the takeaways from this module. First, module 1 core principles. System enables protection. Food safety system exists because consumers cannot protect themselves and good intentions alone cannot guarantee safety. Second, trust must be designed. Trust must scale across distance, complexity, and anonymity through structured system, not personal relationships. Thirdly, control requires evidence. Intent and control are different. System turns promises into demonstrable, verifiable reality. Fourthly, prevention is the purpose. System exists to prevent predictable failure before harm occurs, not to respond after incident. Finally, fifth, everyone is responsible. No part of the food chain can opt out. Every role contributes to protection or failure. The foundation for everything that will follow. This module is not introductory material to be skipped. It is the conceptual foundation upon which the entire course is built. When you move forward to examine how food safety fails, how controls work, how systems are designed, and how standards translate these concepts, you will return uh, to the principles we have established here. Diagnosis. Understand failure patterns requires understanding what systems are meant to prevent. Design. Building effective systems requires understanding why they exist and what they must achieve. Standards. Interpreting requirements requires understanding the protection logic they encode. If you understand why systems exist, you will never confuse documentation with protection, compliance with safety, or certification with competence. Real world application exercise. Before moving to the next module, apply the module's thinking to your own organization or a system you know. First, identify your context. What are the specific ways consumers depend on your organization for protection they cannot prove themselves? Secondly, map trust dependency. Where does your system rely on distance, handover, or invisible processes that require structured trust? Then, thirdly, locate intent control gap. Where do you currently have good intentions but lack demonstrable control or evidence? Fourthly, assess information control. Which critical processes depend on individual knowledge, memory, or the way we always do things here? Phrase. Fifth, answer the core question. If no oversight exists, would your system still protect consumers? Why and why not? These questions will guide your learning throughout the course and focus your attention to the most critical improvement opportunities. Case study: when good intention fail. Consider a mid-sized food manufacturer with a strong reputation and experienced staff. Let's say long, long-serving employees who knew food safety phrase, regular training sessions, management commitment to quality, no major incident in 15 years. Then a supplier changed a raw material formulation without notification. Staff assumes everything was the same because it looks right. No verification system exists to detect the change. The results: an undeclared allergen reached consumers. Recall costs exceed £2 million. Customers, customer relationships were permanently damaged. The company had good intentions, experienced people, and historical success, but no system to detect what people could not see. The lesson here: this failure demonstrates every principle in Mutual One. Consumers do not could not protect themselves. Good intention failed under normal condition. Intent did not equal control. The company learned that food safety is not what you believe, it is what you can prove. We have some voices from the fields here. We will skip that for now, but you can pause the video and look at them. Common misunderstanding have been resolved. First, let's look at the misunderstanding and the realities that we have cleared throughout this module. First misunderstanding: people say that food safety is about hygiene and cleanliness. What we have learned today: hygiene is one element. Food safety is about systematic hazard prevention across the entire chain. We have clarified that, and we will progress throughout the other 12 modules that are coming up. Second misunderstanding: people say we are certified, so we have good food safety. Today we have clarified that certifications prove you meet requirements at a point in time. Ongoing protection requires living system. Then people also have misunderstanding where they say our experienced staff know what to do. Today we have clarified that experience is valuable but insufficient. Systems preserve control when people change or make mistakes. The other misunderstanding is when organizations say, we have never had a problem, so we must be doing it right. The reality, we clarified in this module one, is that historical confidence is not future protection. Absence of detected incidents is not proof of control. The other misunderstanding people have is our organizations. They say something like, food safety is the quality department's job. Today, we have clarified that food safety is everyone's responsibility, including leadership, operations, and support functions, all contribute their part. Finally, the other misunderstanding is that standards tell what to do. Today, we have clarified that standards codify what works. Understanding why systems exist allow you to implement standards effectively. Building your professional vocabulary. This module introduces fundamental concepts that will recur throughout the course. Ensure you understand these terms Precisely. First, food safety system means demonstrated combination of people, processes, equipment, and information designed to prevent food safety hazard from reaching consumers. Second, we talk about controls, which means control means here the demonstrable ability to prevent, eliminate, or reduce a hazard to an acceptable level supported by evidence. Thirdly, we talk about intent versus control. Here it means intent is the desire to achieve safety, control is the proven ability to achieve safety consistently. We talk about the prevention. Here in this context, it means actions taken during harm, before harm occurs to eliminate the possibility of hazard realization rather than responding after incidents. Fifth, we have evidence. In our context, it means objective information that demonstrate control is functioning as designed, including records, verification results, and validation data. Finally, we do have system thinking. In our context, it means understanding food safety as interconnected processes where upstream decisions affect downstream outcomes. Preparation for Module 2. The next module will move from why systems exist to examine why they fail in the real world. In Module 2, we will explore the following. First, the reality of the global food safety and why fragmentation creates risk, how farms, factories, logistics, and uh, retail forms one interconnected risk system, why the same failure patterns repeated across industries, countries, and scales, why organizations with good intentions experience people and certification still experience incidents. Then also we will explore the interface, handover, and transitions when control is most frequently lost. When you understand how systems fail, you are finally ready to learn how to design systems that work. Module 2 build on diagnostic capability that will inform every design decision you make. Module 1 is complete. You now understand why systems work. One foundation, principle established, food safety system exists to protect consumers from hazards they do not control themselves. 8 core concepts: trust at scale, human limitation, intent versus control, prevention logic, public good, scale amplification, change survivor, and evidence requirement. Then we will cover 12 module ahead. This understanding will guide your learning through the failure analysis, control design, system building, translation, and sustained excellence. Food safety is not paperwork, it is protection you can prove. Final reflection: the question that defines maturity. If no regulator ever visits your organization, would your system still protect consumers? This question reveals food safety maturity. Carry it with you through this course and your career. If you answer evolve around maybe or yes, and there is how we do it or something like that, you will have internalized what this module teaches. System exists to protect people. Everything else, such as audit, standard, certification, is how we prove that protection is real. Module 1 is complete and you are ready for Module 2. What do you have what do you have achieved so far? You now understand the foundation logic of food safety system. You can articulate why systems exist, why good intentions fail, and why controls require evidence. You recognize that food safety is a public responsibility scaled through structured trust. What comes next? Module 2, we examine the reality of the global food system and analyze how food safety fails across industries, borders, and scales. We will investigate repeated failures patterns, identify where controls break down, and build your diagnostic capabilities. When you understand both why systems exist and how they fail, you will be ready to learn how to design systems that work. This is how we meet and exceed the requirements by establishing foundations understanding before teaching implementation. We ensure that every subsequent design decision serves the ultimate purpose, consumer protection through demonstrable control. Welcome to the journey from principle to practice. Module 2 is waiting for you. See you there. Bye bye.